Trailblazers, or Trailgrinders, as we should call it for the time being, is broken and especially unfun. I know I'm gonna catch some flack for this video, but that's okay. If you want everything is awesome style of videos, Commander Burr does some amazing videos of that kind. If you want some everything sucks kind of videos, Commander VMX does those amazingly well and in a very entertaining fashion. I strive really hard to be balanced and complement the things that Frontier Developments does well, while also being a constructive critic of the things that I believe have not gone well. And in its current state, Trailblazers, the colonization update, I believe, I will argue, is not in a good place and needs some major overhauls to be candidly fun, because in its current state, I will argue that it isn't. And obviously, fun is a very subjective thing. So what is deeply unfun to me and what my understanding is of the community in general might be incredibly fun to you. And that's okay. And that's the beauty of us being all different. I am not making a value statement of how you should play the game, but I'm trying my best at articulating some of the elements that makes games fun for the community in general and whatever things that instead contribute to making things unfun. So today we're going to talk about four things. First, the gameplay loop of Trailblazers or Trailgrinders. Second, the mechanics and the UI. Third, the terrible grind or time for rewards, and we'll get to that into a minute. And then finally, the bugs, which are to be expected in a beta, and honestly, some are fixable, but some are really big and need a hotfix. So we'll get into that in a moment. So, the gameplay loop. The gameplay loop of colonization is really bare bones. Find a system, drop a beacon, haul, construct a new thing, repeat steps 3 through 7. That's it. Colonization is all about hauling materials to construction sites. There is pretty much nothing else. Yes, sure, you get some money and some salary if you build things, and there's some complicated mechanism. We'll get to that into UI in terms of like prerequisites to build things in a system. But fundamentally, this is what the gameplay loop is about. Colonization is hauling. And I guess some people like space trucking and appreciate space trucking. But I think that people who will appreciate the amount of space trucking required, and we'll get into that when we talk about the grind, is gotta be a really small subset of the overall community. And even if you do this in a group, the numbers are mind-boggling. So again, we'll get to that in a moment. The mechanics and the user interface. The biggest and fundamental flaw of the current system is that there is no undo button. It's not possible to cancel constructions. It's not possible to refund and tear down, or even just remove constructions from the system. And once you commit to starting construction of sort of installation or other kind of port or other kind of thing in the system, that's it. You cannot undo it. You cannot move it. There's nothing you can do. You must complete it, or it's just going to remain there unconstructed forever. Unlike the primary port of the system, by the way, in additional items that are constructed thereafter do not even time out. So you can't even rely on the timeout of 4 weeks to get it removed from a given system. This is a big problem because, by the way, the constructions of things in the system is also somewhat unpredictable. I was trying to put an asteroid bag in an ice ring, which was the external ring of a gas giant. I'd imagine that position 1, starting from 0, so I'd imagine position 0 is the interior rocky ring, and position 1 is the exterior ice ring. But no, I position the asteroid base, and after I position it, the asteroid base shows up in the rocky ring, which makes no sense. But it can happen, I guess. The problem is I can't move it. So now I've wasted 3 construction points, and we'll get into that in a moment, to build something which is not what I wanted to build, and have no way to undo it. Ever. That just doesn't work, guys. You need an undo, cancel, refund, teardown button of some kind. Otherwise, this just makes no freaking sense. I touched upon the build points element in talking about the asteroid base that I was building. The logic and the prerequisite view of what you need to build what in the system is incredibly convoluted. Some buildings provide build points, both tier 2 build points and tier 3 build points. Some buildings consume build points. Some buildings consume build points and provide higher tier build points. But how that works is incredibly nested and convoluted, and we'll see some chart that hopefully sheds some light with regards to that in a moment. And furthermore, there are prerequisites for buildings, which, again, are hidden away in the UI until you actually go and try and build something, which, by the way, in the case of planetary settlements, you have to be at a planet to even be able to see those requirements. So, for example, I wanted to build a tourist settlement on my Minmus planet that I found in a system that kind of looks like Minmus in Kerbal Space Program 2. But no, can't. Because why? Because apparently you need to build a satellite before you're able to jot down a tourist settlement. I guess the tourists want satellite internet to download the cat media that apparently is all the rage in tourist settlements. But still, it would be fine if there was at least some way to know in advance without actually having to make the hike and scrolling through only to be told, nope, can't build this, need a satellite. And then you have to go and grind out a satellite to build a port. Furthermore, and this goes into bugs, I did build a satellite, and still the system doesn't register satellite being built, so I still cannot build my tourist settlement. But I guess that goes into the bugs element. Further, you cannot pin resources, so you're left to essentially taking screenshots, at least that's what I'm doing right now, either that or create spreadsheets of the materials required, because jumping from the trade window at a given planetary port all the way to the architect view that states what you're going to require is incredibly painful and user unfriendly. So the mechanics really need an overhaul, and the interface really needs an overhaul. More substantially, the grind is absurd. Really absurd. And we've made some assumptions regarding what is the minimum time to build different installations and things in a system. And I think these are very optimistic and conservative to begin with. So if anything, this is really truly a minimum time. We assume full loads of cargo and that the resources are available, which is, by the way, not generally true. We assume that you spend 0 time searching for anything, which is also generally not true, but we'll run with that argument. We assume the 6-minute round trip time per haul, which I think is pretty reasonable. And we assume 684 tons per haul, which is kind of as high as it gets with a cutter that has also an FSD booster and the auto dock and super cruise assist modules. With these very optimistic assumptions, and having gathered some data with regards to materials required, then this shows also the builds point generated, and I'll link this spreadsheet in the comments below so you can have a see directly. I look at like the amounts of materials needed. Note that tier 3 stations need something like 280 round trips of fully loaded cutters to build. And what that gives you, if you translate it to the math that we gave before, is the time required to build things varies from about half an hour to build a small planetary settlement all the way to over 28 hours to build a tier 3 planetary station, or 27 and change to build a tier 3 space station like Ocellus or Orbis starport. Now think about it for a moment. Like, this is an optimistic view of the minimum time required to build one station. And this is hauling only. So to build an Ocellus starport, not including the requirements of build points, by the way, that we're going to need to even be able to do that, but let's assume that was sorted for a minute. You need to haul things back and forth and back and forth and back and forth for 27 hours. I don't know who designed this, but guys, you're off by a factor of at least 10. At least 10, in my view. This is just mind-boggling. I mean, if you are a hardcore trucker and all you dream is hauling cargo back and forth in Elite Dangerous, more power to you. But for the rest of the universe of all of us, this is unreal. This is just crazy. There's a factor of 10 error in these numbers, in my view, from a design perspective, if not more. Last but not least, there are some major bugs, but I am more inclined to give FDev some slack on these because it's a beta and there's going to be bugs and this stuff happens and they'll fix it, but it's worth calling them out because some are very substantial. The other stuff that I talked about earlier is more concerning because the lack of an undo button is a structural thing and it's a big issue. The insane grind is a design choice, which I sincerely hope they take a hard stare at, and the numbers that I'm sharing here. Now, when it comes to bugs, you can steal a system today. You can colonize on top of somebody's existing claim and reset their progress in the process of doing so. That is a game-breaking bug, which needs a hotfix as soon as possible. Frontier said, we will not reset the progress in the beta. No worries. You'll help players. We'll be doing that for you until this is fixed. So just wait until people go spend 27 hours, or actually 26 hours and a half, to build most of their Ocellus station, only for someone to come in, plop a claim on top of it, and erase that progress, like single-handedly. This is a game-breaking bug, which absolutely needs a hotfix. Then there are situations in which the primary port being installed state is lost. And in general, the overall state of what things are built in construction or in the system is not working correctly. That also needs a hotfix because none of that is working as intended, and it is limiting with regards to like how we can proceed for colonization. So it needs to be fixed. And to a much lesser extent, but still worth calling out since we're talking bugs, the autodock flight computer at construction sites is murderous. It will actively crash you into the construction site and is painfully unaware of the geometry of the site. So don't use autodock at construction sites or you will likely explode. But again, that is truly minor compared to all the other things that we talked about. So that's my opinion. Unvarnished as always, like it or hate it. Like, call me a naysayer, call me sort of like negative Nancy, whatever you want. Like, part of doing what we do here is also accepting and taking the criticism. But regardless of how you feel about it, I would love to hear your comments and your input with regards to how you feel about Trailblazers or Trailgrinders, depending again on how you feel about the state of the game. That's all for today. Glory to Mechan. Come on to Mechan. Over and out.